The loony left is using LGBTQ+, basically the alphabet, to groom and indoctrinate kids into victim groups, so they can tell them that everyone who is not in that group is oppressing that particular group, and CRT to indoctrinate them to be good little communists. If you don't believe me, they're already talking about arresting people for using speech they don't like.
Of Redlands since 1963, and my family has all come through Redlands schools. We have 4 generations in this city, and I am very sad that I have to come here. For the reason that I have to come here, I would love to say I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job, but you're not. Because when I look at the statistics of the academics in the city of Redlands, I graduated in 1980, my brother's in the 70s, and I see that California ranks 42 in the United States, and Redlands is in the 50% of that ranking. That stinks compared to what I had when I was raised, when I went to school here. Another thing I want to ask about is we've got pornography in the public library. And when people say you need to, ban books, yeah, we're going to ban Hustler, Playboy, and all those other things. They should not be in a school library. Those things were in a back room or in the liquor store when I was growing up. They were not in a public school classroom. We don't put the happy hooker in the school. We have to have censorship in the schools to protect children. When children come to adults and ask for help, and adults look at them with blank stares or say you have to go through the 8-step process and a year later the book is not removed, I want to know what's going on. And I'm going to say this, there are no LGBTQ children. I am a business owner in this town. I'm a pastor in this town with my husband. That happens later on. We're not grooming children. I'm going to tell you, school district, you can train our children in academics, but you're not called to raise them. And Alex, when you spoke last time we had a school board meeting and you said you had to wear many hats, you're not qualified to counsel my grandchildren or my children. You're not qualified to be an attorney. You're not qualified to be a social worker. If you're going to teach science, you teach science and teach correct science. Now, I was at the school board last year when you guys said that we have to put masks on children based on science. There's no science for a paper mask. It doesn't protect you from anything. But you got $63 million to enforce those COVID mandates. And also I want to say, we're grooming children. If we have $43 million paid out to survivors of sexual abuse in this district, it's astounding that you can sit there and say you're doing a good job and pat yourself on the back. You need to get to work because you answer to the citizens, the parents, the grandparents, and God Almighty for what you're doing. What Dr. Broom just talked about, that is what you need to realize. You will all give an account to God for what you're doing sitting in these seats and what you're teaching these children and what you're allowing in our schools. Redlands could be very high academics. I have tons of school teachers in my family. You need to wake up.
You know you're in a cult if 1. You believe you are what your imagination says you are. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 6. You believe reality isn't real. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 10. Thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis, who didn't know how many Oscars she'd won, them can't count. You know you're in a cult if 11. You will cry in protest to take a real black woman off a syrup bottle and a Quaker off a box of oats named Quaker Oats, only to put a fake white woman on a beer can. All while saying, I can't believe they're so upset over a beer can. Bud Light parent Anheuser-Busch's stock has lost $27 billion over Dylan Mulvaney. You know you're in a cult if 13. If you get triggered because someone doesn't think you're special because you were born into one of the CRT-approved victim groups, they believe deeds and personal responsibility warrant pride. You know you're in a cult if 18. Lost your shit over To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn but are screaming about banning books with gay sex and masturbation in school libraries. You know you're in a cult if 20. Will lie even with irrefutable evidence. You know you're in a cult if 21. Being so filled with hate, you will groom, mutilate, and murder your own children, all while calling your opposition fascists. You know you're in a cult if 22. Believes that out of 7 billion people on the planet, white, straight, males are somehow oppressing everyone else. You know you're in a cult if 23. Will lose your shit when someone points out that you're not oppressed, you're just stupid. You know you're in a cult if 25. Will refer to a biology book as right-wing propaganda. You know you're in a cult if 26. Will lose your shit if someone actually uses proper English instead of your made-up pronouns. You know you're in a cult if 32. Are the same people who say you can't indoctrinate kids to be gay with a book or a drag show, but continually accuse the church of doing that very thing. Although religion isn't taught in schools, and you're not forced to go to church. You know you're in a cult if 33. When someone is simply talking science and common sense, you will try to bring religion into it. Well, you know the church. Well then, don't go to church. It's not against the law. Not going to school is. You know you're in a cult if 34. Will use unrelated behavior to justify their sick, grooming behavior. You know you're in a cult if 38. You resort to insults as you can't handle the truth. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. Patients with schizophrenia may show dysfunctional impulsivity and impulsive aggression. You know you're in a cult if 39. Will lose your shit when someone says you're in a woke cult, and to prove you're not, you do the things on this list over and over and over. You know you're in a cult if 40. Will accuse your opposition of that which you are guilty. You know you're in a cult if 46. Consider chemically castrating a pedophile horrible and inhumane, but chemically castrating a child just dandy.